Okay then, and welcome to our first online lesson for biology. With the school closure due to the recent pandemic about the coronavirus or COVID-19, we're having to move over to these online lessons. So from now on, in the lessons that you would normally have with me, I will be uploading a video covering what we would have covered in that lesson. So for these lessons to work, you're going to need your exercise book with you. If you've got a textbook, great. You're going to need a pen, pencil, ruler, and ideally a green pen. If you haven't got a green pen, you can use any other colour. So up until this lesson at school, we've been looking at what bacterial diseases are. We've spoken about pathogens, and we now need to have a look at viral diseases. So in your book, as you would do with any other lesson, you need to write the title viral disease. By the end of the lesson, you should be able to describe the symptoms of some viral diseases. You should be able to tell me how viral diseases spread, and you should be able to explain how viral diseases spread. So you should be able to describe how they spread and explain how they spread this way. So as we would do in any other lesson, we're going to use the same colour coordination as we normally would. Before I do that, let me just get rid of this. So what we need is our first keyword, which is the word virus. Virus, okay? Now, a virus is defined as a very small acellular pathogen. So it is a very small acellular pathogen. Now, for you to understand this definition, you first of all need to understand what the word acellular means. Acellular means that it is not made up of any cells. Viruses don't have cells of their own. So the words acellular means that they do not have cells of their own. So do not have cells of their own. Okay? They have to take over other cells in order to survive. So we can put underneath acellular in red because it's an important point. We can say that viruses take over other cells to survive / reproduce. To survive / reproduce. Okay? Another important point that I just want to pick up on before we move on is that they are very, very small. Viruses can infect bacteria. They're so small that they can go into the cell of a bacteria and infect it. So I'm just going to add underneath here that viruses can infect bacteria. So they're very, very small. They're much smaller than a bacteria, and a bacteria is really small in terms of sizes that we understand. So before we move on, I want you to understand, and I'm going to put in red, that viruses are not living cells. So that's a very important point. Viruses are not living cells. And I'm going to give that an exclamation mark. It's in red because it's important. So viruses are very small acellular pathogens. They're so small that they can infect bacteria. The word acellular means that they do not have cells of their own. Therefore, viruses have to take over other cells to survive and reproduce, and viruses are not living cells. So you should now be able to tell me what a virus is. But in order for us to understand how they spread, we first of all need to have a think about the structure of a virus and what it has to allow it to take over other cells to reproduce. So I'm just going to clear the board. I'm going to turn it back to black because it's easier for you guys to see. And we can put the subheading, how do viruses reproduce? Question mark. Okay. So that says, how do viruses reproduce? And in order for you to understand how viruses reproduce, we need to draw a diagram of a virus. So viruses consist of this outer shell, sort of like so. And on that outer shell, we've got these sort of protein sticks. Okay, these are outer surface proteins. Now, if you look at the most recent images of the coronavirus, of COVID-19, which is on BBC News today, I think I saw it on Instagram, these viruses have this shape, okay? And just as a reference for you, the word corona means to have a halo. So these viruses have a halo around them, or a ring around them that appears to be a halo. So we've got these proteins on the outside. On the inside, we'll have what's known as a capsule, and we draw it as this sort of shape. And then inside the capsule, we've got the genetic material of the virus. Okay? Now, the reason I haven't labelled this up is because I'm going to be using it in my writing. So you need to draw that in your books. If you have got different coloured pens, great, so that you can colour coordinate what we're doing. And I'm going to match the colours that I use to this diagram. Okay? So we can start by saying that viruses consist of a strand of genetic material, and because I've matched the colour, that's this bit here inside this blue sort of diamond shape. Now this is surrounded by a protein coat. So viruses consist of a strand of genetic material surrounded by a protein coat. Okay. So here's our genetic material and here's our protein coat. Okay. The virus also has surface proteins found on its outside, which we've put on in orange here. So we can say that surface proteins on the virus allow it to attach itself to a host cell. So what will happen is these surface proteins will attach the virus to a host cell, and then the virus will insert its capsule or its protein coat into the cell so that its genetic material can join with that of the cell, which will then make new viruses. So we can say that once attached to the host cell, the virus will insert its protein coat, or capsule as it's also known, will insert its protein coat / capsule into the cell. In fact, I should go back to white for here. Into the cell or into the host cell. So it'll insert its protein coat. So I'll just clean that up a bit. Insert its protein coat or its capsule into the host cell. That's this bit in blue. And then we can say that the genetic material, so genetic material, or the virus genetic material, then inserts itself into the host cell or the host cell's DNA, causing it just set that, causing it to create new viruses until it bursts. Until it bursts. So what you will have is you'll have a host cell. So this is our host cell. I'll just put HC. And we've then got our virus, which is attaching itself to the host cell, like so. Finish off our virus. So this is our virus. Draw the proteins. The virus will insert this protein or this protein coat into the host cell. This now contains the DNA of the virus, and then this will cause the host cell to start producing lots more viruses or parts of viruses that the virus couldn't make on its own. It needs a host cell in order to do that. Okay? Eventually, what will happen is this host cell will be so full of viruses that it will burst. Okay? So the virus will attach itself to the cell with these surface proteins. It will insert this protein coat or capsule into the host cell. The protein capsule contains the virus's DNA or genetic material. The genetic material will join with the DNA of the host cell. The host cell will then start to make more viruses until it bursts, releasing them to infect other cells. Now, if you have a look on the PowerPoint that I've attached, there is a slide that looks like this. What I would like you to do is I would like you to pause the video, and I would like you to print this off if you can. If you can't, you'll need to draw each one. And I would like you to say what's happening at each stage. So if you look, this is exactly what we've just said. The virus is attaching itself to the host cell. It's inserting its DNA in. The host cell then starts to make new viruses or parts of viruses. Once the viruses have been made, the cell bursts, releasing the viruses out, which go on and infect other cells. So I would like you to pause the video at this point, using what we've said here, to either draw or print out and cut out these diagrams, stick them in your book, and annotate what's happening. Pause the video now and get that done. Okay, lovely. So you should have paused the video and you should have done that diagram saying how these cells, how these viruses replicate. The final part of this lesson, we need to have a think about how these viruses reproduce and how they spread. Okay, so I'm going to do some examples of some viruses that you need to know about for your GCSEs. So we can put examples of viral diseases include examples of viral diseases include ... The first one that we need to talk about is a viral disease known as measles. Measles. Now, luckily, a lot of you guys have been vaccinated against measles when you were a baby, so it's very, very difficult for you to get it. And even if you haven't been vaccinated against it, most people can't catch it, therefore you can't catch it from anybody else. At the same time, there are a number of cases being seen more and more in UK universities because people haven't had the vaccination for measles. Now, what measles does is it gives you a fever, a red rash, and it can lead to death. So measles has a fever, a red rash, and can be fatal. And can be fatal. Okay? Now, measles is spread by droplet infection. So it's spread by droplet infection. What that means is that there are tiny droplets of water in the air that contain the virus and you breathe it in. So when we mean droplet infection, what we're saying is that there are tiny droplets of water in the air that is inhaled. So you inhale these droplets of water that contain the measles virus and therefore you catch it. Now, controls against this disease include people having vaccinations, exactly what I just said to explain it to you. So we can say underneath here that most people are vaccinated against measles. Okay, so most people are vaccinated against measles. The second viral disease we need to talk about today for your GCSEs is one known as HIV, or human immunovirus, or human immunodeficiency virus. So HIV. Now, HIV has initially flu-like symptoms. Initially flu-like symptoms, but can lead to death. Can lead to death. Okay? Now, this is spread through direct contact. So we can put here, spread by direct contact. What we mean by this is it can be things like sexual intercourse, or mainly when people who are injecting drugs share needles. So we can say here, via sexual contact and or slash sharing of needles. Okay? Now, to stop the spread of it or to control it, we can use what are known as antiretroviral drugs, which stop the virus entering our lymph nodes. HIV does not have a cure. We can only slow it down. So I'm just going to write underneath here that we can say antiretroviral drugs, antiretroviral drugs, and we can add a further bit to this. I'm going to add it in red because it's important. We can say that HIV has no cure, but can be slowed down. Our final virus that we need to talk about today is tobacco mosaic virus. So number 3, tobacco mosaic virus, or as you'll commonly see it, TMV. Now, you'll be happy to know that tobacco mosaic virus doesn't infect people, it only infects plants. So the first thing I'm going to put next to this, and I'm going to put it in red, we can say only infects plants. Only infects plants. So you cannot get TMV, okay? What it does is it affects the leaf of the plant, reducing photosynthesis. So we can say underneath here, affects the leaf of a plant, so it cannot do photosynthesis. Okay. Now it enters the plant through wounds. So if there's a cut in the plant or a break in the stem or the leaf, the virus gets in through that break. So we can say enters wounds of plants, and the way that we do it is we can remove, the way that we stop it spreading even, we can remove infected parts of the plant so that it doesn't spread. So we can say remove infected plant material. So we can remove infected plant material. Now, just for your idea, we've got the name of the virus in green. In this sort of yellowy orange colour, we're saying how it spreads. So how it spreads. And then in this sort of pinky red colour, we're saying how to stop it spreading. How to stop it spreading. Okay? So measles is a fever or red rash that can be fatal. It's spread through droplet infection, which is where there's tiny droplets of water in the air that you breathe in containing the virus. Most people are vaccinated against measles when they're a baby, therefore most people can't get it. HIV has initially flu-like symptoms but can lead to death. HIV is a virus that attacks your white blood cells, therefore it gets rid of your immune system. It spreads via direct contact, so such as sexual contact or the sharing of needles, particularly among drug addicts. I don't know why it's done that. Antiretroviral drugs can be used to slow down HIV, but it cannot. Sorry, I don't understand why this has gone like that. It cannot be stopped, it can only be slowed down. And tobacco mosaic virus only infects plants. It affects the leaf of a plant, so it can't do photosynthesis. It enters through the wounds of a plant, and the way that you stop it spreading is to remove any infected plant material. So, you should now be able to tell me some symptoms of viral diseases, you should be able to tell me how they spread, and you should be able to give me some examples to explain how they spread. What I would like you to do now, you should have already done this activity. Using the PowerPoint that I've sent, I would like you to attempt these 4 slides, okay? So start with this one, have a go at working that out, then have a go at step 1 and 2 on this one, step 1 and 2 on slide 7, and then finally have a go at the questions. If you want to print these out, if you're lucky enough to have a printer at home, great. If not, you will need to write out the questions so that we know what you've done in future. So that concludes our first online lesson for biology. Could you please let me know if you need any help by either adding comments below in the Google Classroom or by dropping me an email directly, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you.